It was day 2 of the highly anticipated Clinton testimony at the ongoing investigation into the Epstein files. Bill Clinton was in the chair today after Hillary Clinton spent hours yesterday being deposed. Bill Clinton today telling that same panel that he, quote, saw nothing that ever gave me pause. For more on what the Clintons have had to say, I want to bring in Kate McKenna. Kate, what else do we know about what Bill Clinton had to say today?
Well, we didn't hear from him directly, but instead, at the end of this all-day grilling, we did hear from some of the Republicans on the House Oversight Committee who came out and said they were impressed with how former President Clinton comported himself in this deposition. They said that he did his best to answer a series of tough questions, that he was candid, that he sought to be forthright. And of course, these were this was a testimony that happened behind closed doors, so we have not been able to see it or know exactly what was asked to the former president or his spouse, Hillary Clinton, yesterday. But there are expected to be transcripts and videos that will be released. In the meantime, we've heard from Republicans. Take a listen to what one had to say.
We believe this was a very productive deposition. I will have to say that President Clinton answered every question or attempted to answer every question. We can talk about some of his answers in more detail, and I'm sure once the video is released and the transcript's released, not only will you, but a lot of people in America will have more questions about some of the answers that were given.
James Comer was also asked whether or not the committee would seek to depose Howard Lutnick, Trump's Commerce Secretary, and he didn't rule it out. Now, Democrats, on the other hand, have not spoken since the deposition wrapped up. However, we did get updates from them throughout the day, and they are seeking to use this opportunity to say that former President Bill Clinton is sort of creating a precedent when it comes to presidents being forced to testify in front of this committee. Of course, they say they would like to hear from U.S. President Donald Trump. Both men do appear in the Epstein files, President Trump more than Bill Clinton. But Bill Clinton was photographed with the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. His name appears on jet manifests. It also, appears in emails, but Bill Clinton says that he hasn't been involved in any way with Jeffrey Epstein since 2006.
Okay, we know that Bill Clinton didn't stop to speak, unlike Hillary Clinton did yesterday. But is there any response from him to all of this?
Yeah, just ahead of his deposition, he posted his opening statements online where he said that he saw nothing and he is not responsible for any wrongdoing. He said that if he knew what Jeffrey Epstein was up to, he would have turned him in himself. And he did share some of that statement. I think we have it. He says, America was built upon the idea that no person is above the law, even presidents, especially presidents. And he wrote, the second reason I'm here is because the girls and women whose lives Jeffrey Epstein destroyed deserve not only justice, but healing. My brief acquaintance with Epstein ended years before his crimes came to light. He says, I saw nothing and he did nothing wrong. And of course, throughout this process, he has denied any wrongdoing. So has Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton said that, she didn't even meet Jeffrey Epstein. And Democrats, again, today were coming to her defense saying she shouldn't have even been there in the first place. So did Bill Clinton's opening statement also made reference to that. But these transcripts and video are set to be released in the coming days. And of course, we'll be able to take a look at exactly what they were asked when those are released.
Kate McKenna in Washington, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, my next guest is a former assistant U.S. attorney. Jean Rossi joins me now from Alexandria, Virginia. Jean, both Bill and Hillary Clinton have now testified in regards to these files. What were your biggest takeaways from all of this?
Well, the first thing I want to say, Sarah, is that these depositions set a terrible precedent for future elected officials and former presidents. Now that former President Clinton has testified, this now opens the door for the Democrats calling Donald Trump when he leaves office. It also opens the door for the Democrats to call Melania Trump when she leaves the White House, because both Mr. Trump's and Melania's image are all over the Epstein files. So what I've been saying is what's good for the goose is good for the gander, and it just sets a bad precedent. I do want to focus on the deposition itself. They didn't focus, to me, on the Clinton Global Initiative. I thought they would have questions on that. They may have. We don't have the transcript. It seems like they were focusing more on salaciousness. It's been reported that they asked him about whether he had some type of sex in a hot tub or something like that. And now they're getting into the really dirty part of his deposition. So I just think the whole thing is an embarrassment. Their deposition of Hillary Clinton was definitely a shiny object to distract people from the troubles that President Trump is facing, and also to House Republicans. So I think the whole thing is just a tawdry affair. And here's who is losing out on all this. Rather than spending time going through the 50% of the files that have been released, the Justice Department is working hand in glove with the House Oversight Committee to take depositions that really aren't moving the ball. They should focus on the Epstein files and not taking depositions that are just a sideshow. So those are my initial thoughts.
Okay. I want to pick up on what you talked about with the precedent, and meaning that this sets the stage for a possibly more Democratic run commission to be calling on Trump, his wife, to testify. I mean, how so is this a precedent? We know in the past, Donald Trump, to other inquiries, has refused to testify. And I mean, just because Bill Clinton did, does that mean Donald Trump would have to?
Sarah, yes. Once President Trump leaves office, the Supreme Court said while he's in office, he has absolute immunity for core constitutional duties and qualified immunity for less than core constitutional duties. So he's protected on that. The Supreme Court gave him a big gift. But once he's out of office, there's no Supreme Court case that's going to protect him from being served with a subpoena and being hauled into Congress to answer for the Epstein files. Not that I'm aware of.
Clinton, just to be clear, then Bill Clinton did not have a choice either.
No, he did not. You can only, it's very hard to, Sarah, it's very hard to quash or defeat a subpoena, whether it's a civil subpoena or a grand jury subpoena or a criminal subpoena. It's very hard to quash it or defeat it. So Donald Trump can oppose getting served with a subpoena after he leaves office, but there really is no constitutional protection for him once he leaves office. And, you know, I as I said before, what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Yeah, no, I
House
take your point.
Democrats, Senate Democrats can subpoena him. It's a bad precedent.
Sure. Okay, well, I take your point. I have time for one more question here, and I guess what I want to know is, you know, given what you know of everything that is in front of them, who else do you think should be deposed? There's been talk of getting the Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, to testify. I mean, based on what you know, what do you think is going to advance the case that they're making here?
Howard Lutnick didn't lie under oath, but he lied to the American people. He said that after 2005 or after a certain time in the early 2000s, he and his wife went to Jeffrey Epstein's townhouse. They were revolted, and then they left, and they never had any contact with him. That was his lie. It wasn't under oath. It then turns out he took his family. Let me repeat that. He took his family around 2014 or in early 2010s to the island where Jeffrey Epstein was committing all his crimes. How that happens without him being called before the House committee or the Senate is beyond me. He has set himself up to be called. How did he, of all people, get to take his family, his entire family, to the island that everybody's talking about that Jeffrey Epstein owned and conducted his sex trafficking? So he should be deposed too.
I guess we won't know the answers to that unless he is. Gene Rossi, thank you very much. Gene Rossi is a former assistant U.S. attorney.